Hello everyone, Melanie Rinaldi here. I'm just going to invite, hopefully Igor Kopecky will be joining us, but today is our first session of our series of conversations with, with Igor. Let me invite him. Hi everyone, hi Sandra, hi everyone for joining. Thank you so much. We're going to have a quick conversation today about comfort zones. Hi, Igor.
Made it.
You made it. Welcome. I love that picture. I imagine that's a picture of you back there, right?
No, it's a Neil Hodge photo that we traded way back. I'm pretty sure it's Fort Lauderdale, back when he started kind of traveling with the team and taking the photos. He started doing all this kind of the year I stopped diving. So I don't have any Hodge photography of me as an athlete, but luckily enough, I do have some as
of his work. Yeah.
Now I even have one as a surfer. So,
cool.
I mean, he does great work. He's got so many great photos, such a great eye, such a great presence.
Yeah.
One of the greats.
Yeah, I think I was like 16 to 18. He photographed me a few times before I left to the US, maybe for a few years. I got some beautiful black and white pictures from him. So right away I could spot that. I thought that was you. I remember you being up on platform, but yeah. Any pictures of him are definitely good finds and good to have around. So welcome. This is our first of many for our series Above Water. The idea with the title of it being Above Water was thinking and talking about everything that happens in relation to diving and outside of diving, so it can relate also to people who are not divers. And of course, comfort zones is a topic that I discuss much of the time with my transformation clients. So weight loss clients, my postnatal ladies that I'm working with now, anybody who's had a baby or is way out of their comfort zone at the beginning for sure. And then divers, of course, learning new dives, getting up on platforms, switching, like I know you had a conversation with Molly, switching from competitive diving to high diving, everything under the sun regarding comfort zones. So let's have a quick chat. Do you have any questions that you wanted to start with, or anything in mind?
Well, I liked sort of the comfort zone theme, and kind of how you talk about it, how, in order to improve and to get there, to get to these ultimate places, you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone. But then there's sort of those two spaces where it's a place of growth, it's uncomfortable, but also if you go too far outside, then you're asking for trouble. So it's like, finding the right parameters where you're not, just slacking off and not improving yourself.
Right.
And then not going too crazy hard and just like experiencing negative experience after negative experience. Right.
Absolutely. So the question is, when do you know that you are slacking and when do you know that you're not, right? So it's about assessing if you're a diver, assessing with your coach or the people around you, your support system, having that trust in your coach, whether to move on to a bigger dive or not, right? So unless it is limiting you or hurting you, the idea is that you should step out of your comfort zone. So it is not always, we should always be out of our comfort zone. There are times where it's okay to be comfortable, but if it is limiting you in any way, or it's hurting you in any way, so hurting you, an example of that would be in a relationship that is toxic, where you're not happy, you're comfortable, and even if it's not toxic, maybe you're just comfortable and complacent in a relationship, but you're not growing or you're not advancing or reaching your goals even within a relationship, right? And in diving, you're comfortable with the tuck dives, but it's time to move on to the pike dives. And where it might be limiting you is you don't now have the DD to compete against the bigger divers and to compete internationally. So if your goal is to be a national champion or an international competitor or just get a stronger list, then you do have to step out of your comfort zone. If you are already in a strong realm where you're doing the pike dives, then maybe advancing to bigger dives at that exact moment is not necessary to get out of your comfort zone in that realm. But I'm sure there's always other areas we can.
Well, and I think maybe even the biggest thing, especially for younger athletes, maybe before they're ready for new dives, but a big comfort zone is just doing your own dives or doing your own things sort of the same way, without actually making that change that's necessary. So whether it's, you know, looking at the water before you stretch on a back entry, where it just feels like if you put your head back, you would go flying over. So
Right.
you don't want to make that change, and yet that's the change that's going to take that dive to the next level.
Right.
Your coach keeps telling you, you just kind of like ignore it, or even your
Right.
teammates. Often the teammates are like telling you what to do, but it's like, it's just
Yeah.
too scary.
Right.
Now, these are like the harder things to make those changes, and I'm sure that has direct applications to life as well, where you know you should do something, but it's just uncomfortable to do it, so you can just go through your day the same way as normal.
Right. Right. So there's a couple of issues there, right? You hit the nail on the head in saying small changes. So how are you able to make a big change if you can't even make small changes? So it's about climbing that ladder, right? A ladder has steps. You don't jump from the bottom step right to the top step. Sometimes big leaps will be necessary, but most of the time it's just step by step and small change by small change. So an example of a small change would be in life. You wear your watch on your right side, wear it on your left side. See how long it takes you before you want to switch back, or before you actually do switch back. The idea is to learn how to be uncomfortable, learn how to be comfortable in the uncomfort, right? So in that feeling of like, this doesn't feel good, but it's okay. It's not harming me, and it's going to help me change. You have to become comfortable with change if you're looking for that path of growth and success, right? So small changes on a daily basis that maybe make you feel a little bit odd, but are not hurting you in the long run, will build confidence and trust in your ability, in yourself, to make bigger changes. So for example, with my transformation clients, I tell them, start by consuming a little bit more water every day, and at the end of the week it'll be easier to consume that amount, versus telling them switch off to like you went from 1 cup of water to 1 gallon. They're gonna lose. It's too much of a leap, right? So
It sounds like a lot of bathroom breaks.
It sounds like it is a lot of bathroom breaks, but that's good for you, right? So that's the idea, to make those small changes. And then of course, trust in your coach, trust in yourself, and build that self-confidence that you can be okay being uncomfortable, as long as it's pushing you towards a greater goal and something positive, like looking at the water, right? So ideally, what might help that athlete that's very uncomfortable is putting them in the belts on the ground, and then making that change in the belts on the ground. And then if you have access to a water belt, putting them in the belts in the water, so you're holding them while they're moving their head back, and then doing that over and over and over again. And of course, it's conquering that fear. So I remember a time where I was having a mental block on full out, and it was becoming a monster for me. And what I decided was that if I was going to be successful and conquer this dive, I was going to put that dive in the scariest realm for me, which was double bouncing. So I was going to double bounce the dive, because now you're all over, there are more variables, you're more unstable. And that was terrifying for me. So I knew that's exactly the direction I was going to go, because it wasn't going to hurt me. And if I knew that I can control, if I lost control of the board, I would know what to do. I did that every morning as a warm-up for 1 month leading up to World Championships in Rome, and I never missed a dive at that meet. So it paid off. And I think that's where you want to go. You want to build the emotional maturity to grab the things that you're afraid of, that are not going to hurt you, that you want to build towards, put them in a position where you can attain them, where you can achieve them by having small goals, set those small goals and achieve those small goals. And every day you will become more comfortable being uncomfortable.
So here, I think there's a couple things in there that are interesting to me. You talked about like how you put yourself out of your comfort zone. You changed your takeoff technique, like really being uncomfortable. The results were very clearly positive.
Right.
And, how do you go about, and then taking small steps on that route? How do you know yourself, or what are some good ways for you to figure out how to know, like you said, what's not going to hurt you in the long run? How do you know where is a safe step and where is not a safe step? What would you say, in diving, you consult with your coach, you kind of have some of your own ideas where that trust and that thing has to go together. but we don't necessarily have a coach when we're, learning how to do other things with our life, like you were saying. I mean, the
Right.
wrist switch with the watch,
Right.
I think it's pretty obvious that's not going to have any real consequences and is not a long-term danger, but there might be other things that we're a little less secure about in our lives.
So let me
How
give you
do
an
you
example.
go about things? Yeah.
Right. So an example in a personal realm outside of diving. I don't want to break up with this person because I'm comfortable. They're a good person. They're not really doing anything wrong. I'm not really doing anything wrong. I'm comfortable, but I'm really afraid of being alone. Right? So that's a fear that's manifesting itself and limiting you, right? It's a life issue. It's not a diving issue. But you need to ask yourself at that point, what is the resistance here? Is it amplified? Is it just? Is it a real issue in my life, or am I amplifying a possible consequence? Like basically you need to have a reality check with yourself. Is what I'm saying a self-limiting conversation, or is it real? What are the chances that at whatever age you are, that if you break up with somebody, that you will be alone for the rest of your life? What are the changes? You need to stop and ask yourself, what are the chances? You need to stop and ask yourself, is that really possible? Or am I just afraid of being alone for the rest of my life? The reality is that the chances of that are slim, because you probably have a lot of great qualities within yourself. You've been able to find somebody already in your life, and chances that you find someone else are high, are good, right? And then you're going to go about your life possibly in other multiple relationships, or maybe just one other, we don't know. But the reality is that a self-limiting conversation that you're amplifying a possible consequence, or is it a realistic? So you need to have a reality check with yourself.
Not to make this a conversation about how to break up.
Right. Nobody needs to break up. I'm not telling people to break up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, outside of diving, it could be something else. It could be like food oriented. It could be exercise oriented. Like, the question is, what's the worst that can happen? And you need to really ask yourself that in an honest way, because the only person you can really count on if you are alone in life is yourself. And how do you build that self-confidence? You be honest with yourself and you ask yourself realistic questions, and then you apply those answers. Yes, I will be okay. No, I don't feel like I'm going to be okay. If that's the answer, then you have to ask yourself again, is that a fear, or is that my belief, or is that really the truth? And if you feel still confused in any category, relationship, food, anything, ask somebody you care about and see what their answer is. And that's where the support system of the people that you love come into play. And then be sure that the people around you are not the ones that are also limiting you in a way, because when you start to change and grow, you might be leaving other people behind, and that's uncomfortable for them. So there's a lot of layers here.
Yeah. And even I think, so one of my former teammates, Tanisha, is weighing in on that concept where when you make a change, and it can be kind of anything, right? Whether it's diving, maybe in relationships as you're trying to challenge things and make things better, or in your own personal life, to not, if you know the kind of the goal is there and you're approaching the goal, your first steps may not actually be positive. Like there may be some, as you make a change, something else goes wrong, but that doesn't mean you're not on the right path, so to speak.
Right. Well, most of the time, whenever we make a big change, whether it's in life or in diving, most of the time there is that adaptation period. And you need to just be patient with yourself during that adaptation period. Whether you're switching from grade school to high school or middle school or going into college, there's always an adaptation period. Whether you're breaking up in a relationship, there's an adaptation period. Whether you're splitting up and moving out of your home, whether you're going to the US for school, whether you're going to another country to learn a new language, there's always an adaptation period. And some are longer and shorter than others. You just have to be patient and then look at the signs if you're going the right direction. Having immediate results is a consequence of this era. Everyone wants everything immediately. Patience is truly a virtue. Patience is what we need. Patience and also evidence. Are the results, are we having small successes?
Yeah, how do you measure your progress? And on that vein, with what you were mentioning, I highly recommend learning a new language. for all the reasons, for being able to understand what's going on when people are speaking that language, but also for the sort of humbleness it brings you when you realize how hard it is to learn another language and how long it takes and how many mistakes you make. Like, to learn another language is it's almost this exact process. Your goal is to learn the language. As you're learning it, you make all kinds of mistakes. Your brain doesn't handle it. You make mistakes. People laugh. You laugh at yourself. There's lots of confusion because you're getting closer, but you mix two words up. It's such a beautiful process. And it staves off Alzheimer's. So
yes.
It's,
yes.
It's all win-win.
I mean, I speak 5 languages, right? And every time I go somewhere, I feel like, and I hear a different language I don't know, I feel like I want to learn that language and challenge my brain in that way. So I highly recommend it because it is positive. There's really nothing negative about learning another language. And I agree. I agree that it's important to challenge yourself in multiple ways. Learn how to cook. There's a learning curve when you're learning how to cook too. You're going to burn some things. You just don't want to burn the house down. But you might burn a pan, you might smoke up the house, you might burn a couple of meals. Gordon Ramsay didn't end up who he is by not making some mistakes. We cannot limit ourselves because we're afraid to fail. Failure is part of the growth process. You just want to move in the right direction, ensure that you are making the right choice, and then suffer a little bit of the consequences as long as they're not hurting you or limiting you.
Then they make for good stories.
And they make for great stories. I have so many stories I'm wiping out. So many. So that's the idea between the comfort zones and how it applies to daily life and how it applies to your growth and your maturity emotionally, psychologically, and as a diver or as somebody in a friendship or relationship. It really applies to everything. And so the idea is really to build yourself up as much as possible so that you have the inner strength and the confidence and the trust in yourself to do it on your own. And if you don't have that immediately, try and find people around you that can support you in that growth process so it won't be so taxing maybe at the beginning, so it helps during that adaptation period. That's the idea.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions? If anybody has any other questions, go ahead and write them now. Otherwise, we're going to sign off and make this just a quick 15-20 minute video, and then we'll meet up again next week for another topic. If anyone has any topic ideas that they want addressed, we can always include that as well in our conversations.
Sounds good. I see suddenly everyone goes quiet. They had all these suggestions earlier, but of course we can only see what's there right now. They'll have to leave them in your comment section.
Yes, leave them in the comment section, and then join us next week for our next Above Water series. I look forward to, of course, Igor, I love speaking with you. It's always a lot of fun, and I look forward to these conversations and touching upon a lot of different topics that hopefully will help divers and beyond.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
It's great to be on the receiving end.
Yay!
Right.
So I will see you next week, and all the best to everyone out there. Bye, guys.
Bye, Mal.